All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Diamond Rivera of the Live Discussions with Diamond podcast. And you're tuned to another special episode tonight. But before we get started, this episode is sponsored by Through Bachata Radio, where you can listen to this interview live in high quality. Just go to throughbachataradio.com and check it out. And tonight, people, we have here one of my favorite artists of our generation, in my opinion. A woman that me and her have talked and realized that we've been through the same circles, experienced the same lifestyle in our dance world. A woman for me that is so much of an honor to have on this platform because to see her growth and progression over the years, her talent is limitless. And for me, I feel she is a leading role model in our scene, but also the world. And I want to bring on tonight a very special person all the way from New York City, Miss Katherine Jimenez.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for that introduction and for having me here tonight. As you mentioned, we had a chance to catch up, but I'm honored to be here, and I think that it's so cool that you are hosting these podcasts and taking a completely different approach. And I think that's really awesome. We need more projects like that.
For me, just being able to have this discussion and realizing, like we talked about, we've crossed paths many times in our dance world. Even as young kids, realizing we were living kind of adult lives and going to parties and telling someone, hey, I'm going to an event on a Friday night, or maybe even during a weekday, and then at 12, 1 o'clock, and maybe going to school the next day, or I'm going away for the weekend and traveling and living that lifestyle for years is amazing, but it can definitely take a toll. But realizing a woman like yourself that, like I said, have seen your journey and seeing where it is now and still, and just, man, it's amazing to see a person who has produced so much amazing content and still continues to just amaze. I mean, especially in our dance world of so many artists, you still are able to really differentiate yourself over the years.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And it means a lot to me because, I think I'm really transparent with the fact that I love to dance and I love to move, and I love everything that comes with that. And growing up, always dancing, it's just, you're right. It's such a different experience. And I think because it was my life and it was something that I was growing up, just kind of like, I'm going to go to Club Cache and kids can't get in there, but I'm performing, So I think that that's really cool. And it wasn't until later that I understood that that was different, or even having gone to a performing arts high school, and in the city and having that experience. And for me, I was, doing the thing that I always did, the thing that I love to do. And it wasn't until later on that I understood, oh, this is completely different. And how can I continue to explore that?
Absolutely. I mean, for me too, I think what was really important that I noticed was how involved your parents were. And that's also a different thing because with most artists, they're most of the times teenagers or adults, but us as young kids as well, but even to our teenagers years, realizing that when our parents are involved in our projects that we're doing and overseeing things and making sure that we're heading in the right direction.
Right.
And for me too as well, I think tonight as well is really being able to celebrate your success from artist to artist. Really, in my sense, just giving you much love, much appreciation for what you've contributed to the scene for so many years.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I do. And I agree. I think that, my parents, they've always been very involved. Until this day, they still are. I'm always like, hey, Dad, like, what should we do with this? And I love to be a sponge in that way and just learn. I always say even to my students, that's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can take in more than we say, so that when you say it, you have that base with which you're saying it. And same thing with dance, you know, you have to learn those guidelines first so
Mhm.
that then you can break out and start exploring. And I think that that is something that maybe our generation understood a little more,
Yeah.
and it kind of got lost somewhere along the way, where people are like just exploring and they forget sometimes that it's important to understand the history
Yes.
and how to do it correctly, so that then you can test those boundaries and break out of that. So I think that's really important, and that's something that I always try to say to my students. You know, I'm like, I know it looks pretty and
Yeah.
beautiful, but you have to get that foundation. Those transitions, they're even more important than the picture.
Absolutely. I mean, I think also really in totality, it really tells a story, because I think also that differentiates that makes a lot of artists specials when they're able to tell stories with their choreographies, how they're able to really be one with the music. So I think that's also a unique factor. And at least during tonight, having a chance to understand Catherine not just as the performer, but Catherine as the human being, because I think also that's what's also been lost for so many years, because we travel, and have those really private and meaningful conversations, usually in the hotel rooms, because we're so busy partying downstairs that we have a limited amount of people with us and we talk about topics. But actually, how many artists that I've talked to realizing that not many people even ask how they're doing. And I think that's also something very important. And on this, tonight, is having people understand Catherine was just so much more than she does publicly, but who she is in whole.
Mhm.
So I mean, as I always start with every one of my guests, I love always saying to taking it back, starting from the beginning and realizing who is Catherine. And as I ask now, who was Catherine before dance?
So I started dancing when I was about 6 years old. And my father and my family in general, they've always been very artistic. But my father specifically, he loves salsa, he loves dancing. And one day he came home. As many of you may know, my sister and I, we had a group called Combinación Perfecta. And my sister's name is Crystal. So he came home one day, he said, "Do you guys want to go take a dance class?" And we're like, okay, yeah, let's go. So we take our first dance class. And after that first day, we fell in love with it. And instantly, I knew that I loved it. So we started to take classes regularly. We started to learn our first choreographies. We started to perform in that way. I remember even going to like get baptized, still maybe like 7 or 8 years old, like just starting to get my feet wet. And we went to a concert at United Palace, and it was of salseros. So we're there, I was really young. I was kind of starting to get a little sleepy. And my dad said, "If I throw you on the stage, will you dance?" And I was like, yeah. He was like, "All right, let's go." And so if you've seen my dad, he's really big, right? I was this like skinny little thing with a lot of curly hair. And we went to the front and he threw me on stage. And I think, again, looking back now, those were the moments that I was so young, but they made such an impact on the way that I viewed life. And it was that moment, just standing on stage, looking out into the audience, hearing the music and just letting go, and expressing myself, and not even thinking about the fact that maybe other people wouldn't understand, or what. That wasn't even a thought. It was just, I have to do this, there is no other way. And obviously after that, I went on to training at the Ailey school for about 12 years. So I auditioned, I got in, started training in ballet, modern dances like Horton, Graham, technique, contemporary. So just making that a lifestyle from a very young age, and understanding the impact that discipline brings to you.
Yes.
So it's been very cool.
I mean, that type of life, and realizing that not many people are able to have that. Realizing too, me growing up doing salsa. I mean, I would say my earliest stages of 5 years old, Starlight Dance Studio, Dave Melendez, and realizing I was with a group of kids that we were all, on a Saturday, for maybe on a weekend, taking dance classes that then turned into performing. And then we realized, I think, with certain kids is, are they going to keep going with it, or are they going to go to something else? There's always something that can take their attention away. And very few of us actually keep going. And I think that was what was really special, because those that kept going, those that kept training, they kept really socializing in their network, their communities. Because us as young kids growing up, we're in an adult world. We're trying to really kind of fit in a sense. So I think too, what happens is us younger dancers kind of had to grow up a little bit faster, maybe intentionally or unintentionally. Of course, we wanted to keep the childhood aspect, but even like you said, at times going to Club Cache, which is an adult place, but we would perform and then have to go. And it's like, that kind of world. And for me, Congresses are really special. New York Congress, seeing those New York acts like yourself. I remember you and your sister Crystal. I remember years ago when you did that routine with Eddie Torres and Mambo City. Like, I'm going way back. And for me, it's like, it means a lot, because there's many artists that in our community that have come and gone. And realizing this, for me, I feel there's just those people that really have that lasting impact. And it's funny how you said you were that young girl, skinny with all the hair, and now you're a woman and still with that hair, and that I think it fits, it works, it's awesome. And now it makes sense when you talked about, as you were growing up, putting yourself in those positions of learning different techniques, learning different styles, really being trained from a young lady. So my question is, as like you said, your dad put you in it with your sister. You guys had that duo that you had. Do you remember what was your first show, or where was your first show, and what was that experience like for you?
Yes, absolutely. So, my first show, so the first school that we ever attended, my sister and I, was Yamule. So, my dad and Osmar Perrones, they go way back. And like I said, my dad, he's been in the dancing for a long time. So, he goes way back with a lot of, the OGs.
Oh, yeah.
And so the first school we went to was Yamule. And at that time, I believe I was maybe 6 or something. And it was the first performance that they were having as a school. And they did that showcase outside in a park. I'm sure we have the video somewhere, but Osmar had told me, he's like, you're too little. I don't think you're going to be able to perform just yet. You guys just started dancing. I think we had maybe been dancing for about a month. And Crystal, my older sister, was in the group. And so, we dance for us was a thing we did as a family. So we were always there. It was a place for us to spend time together, which I think is beautiful all within itself. And it brings a different aspect to it as well. It was a place, something that we could share. And so, I was on the sidelines. I started to learn the choreography, and he saw that, and he was like, if I put you in there, will you perform? And I'm like, yeah, of course. So that was our first official show. I forgot the name of the park, but it was the first showcase that Yamule did as a school.
Wow.
And that was our first showcase. And then it wasn't until about like maybe a year and a half later, we started training with Eddie Torres as well, the Mambo King. And we put a group together called Combinación Perfecta, under the leadership of Eddie. And we started to perform kind of on our own, like you mentioned, in London and LA and all these different congresses over the world.
Absolutely. I mean, because I think that was also amazing to see the family aspect of actually having a partnership, 2 sisters actually performing together. And what I loved was that when I saw both of you perform, I felt like on stage you were motivating each other to even do it stronger. Because when you see so many acts, sometimes it can look the same, but when you have those acts that they're on stage and the crowd is feeding into them, but at the same point, you're feeding into one another. Because realize
Mhm.
sometimes it's one that's really high and the other person's low, but at a young age, both of you were able to really match each other's energy. And I think that was really special because as we know in the dance world, that as we grow, you have the groups like Yamule, your Santo Ricos, your Charismas, the Pia Canelas, the list goes on, and realizing, hey, as you're getting older, you want to put yourself in a position to really start traveling more, making more of a name for yourself, and you working with Eddie, having a person of that stature and that caliber, believing in both of you, and realizing there was something, because from my understanding, I wasn't known. I mean, I'd never seen anyone do that and taking that reins of helping, and me not even knowing that you were part of Yamule at one point. Like that right there was amazing. I mean, Jeff from Huracan here saying that was epic, and realizing the history, the things you're learning, the things I'm learning, and kind of seeing where it all started. And my question now is, when having your dad have that connection with people like Osmal, you work with Yamule, and then you're working then with Eddie. When did you, or maybe when was the moment that you kind of realized everything was clicking and you really saw yourself started to grow more as an artist?
Um, if I'm being honest,
Hmm.
I think that there there definitely was a time, but it just was so many years ago. So I can relate it kind of by years just because I've been able to track it with the video. So maybe around like 11 years old. Crystal and I, my sister, we still had the group Combinación Perfecta, and she was starting to decide that, she wanted to study other things like law, like she was getting ready to go into college. And like I said, it takes a lot of time for you to investigate and be kind of a scientist in your craft. So from that young age, I started to play around with few, like, just merging styles together and making choreographies. And so I think it has been an ongoing journey that I've been able to kind of see the changes and the phases,
Hmm.
but never like a specific moment that I can remember where that wasn't the case, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, seeing then you growing from the age of 11, also then seeing you getting older, having that moment when I seen, and I think it was amazing to see, like you said, you worked with Eddie, and then at one point you were working with his son, and
Mhm.
realizing that partnership. And for me, that was one of my favorite partnerships of those times, because again, that matching of the energy, and again, I also think that was a perfect combination as well at that point in time. But now my question to you is, like you said, you were learning so many styles growing up as a young woman, and when was there a moment that you, or do you feel like you kind of there was a point, you've been in the salsa scene for so many years, this dance world, was there a moment that you felt you kind of had to step away, or you felt that you always kind of had your hand here and there? Because I would always see you perform, but then also realizing, I saw over the years, then you started working more heavily with Alvin Ailey, and
Right.
now being an instructor, because being an instructor is totally different than being just a performer. In my opinion, I mean, the responsibility also you have,
Yeah.
being, a principal teacher, principal dancer. But yeah, again, my question really is, as you were growing as a dancer, as you're getting much older, did you feel like you had to make a transition between being in the dance world and that other world, other life in a sense?
I think that, yeah, yes, to answer your question, I definitely did. And it was around the time that Crystal, my sister, and I had kind of decided to take a break from traveling, since she had decided that she still dances, but she not necessarily performing. And so she decided she wanted to take a step away. And at that same time, like I mentioned before, I was attending the Professional Performing Arts School,
Yes.
which was well, is still, they are affiliated with Alvin Ailey. So aside from becoming a part of the scholarship program at Ailey, and now having to be there almost 7 days a week, till very late. I was also attending that performing arts school, trying to keep up the grades, balance, what I mean, though, those different things that you have to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was time consuming to be there, from being in school, let's say, 8 o'clock in the morning till about 1 in the afternoon, and then dance from 1 in the afternoon till like 9 p.m. every single day to go back and do it again. So it was more that, again, when you're going through the motions, I think you're not necessarily thinking about it present. I try to be more aware of it now, but at that time, I think it was just my life, the things that I like to do. Here we go. It's like training season, ballet 2 times a day, point shoes, going to this, there, your snacks. And so you're building a discipline. And that's why I think that even though dancers may go off and branch out to do different things, you always keep those benefits that you get from training. And I see that it stands out, and not just limited to dance, but just sports and athletes in general. You have that dedication and that knowledge of how to listen to your body and how to do what's right for you. So there definitely was that moment where I had to take a step back and really focus on my training.
Yeah.
And I think at that same time was also when I fell in love with teaching, with the aspect of teaching. So I maybe wasn't performing as much consistently.
Yeah.
We definitely had our performances at the theater, which was amazing. That was a completely different light for me to perform now contemporary rather than just salsa. And there's so much that comes with that. But that was, I think, around the same time that the roles kind of reversed, and I started to see things differently.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed too, and something you said was really great was you going to the Professional Performing Arts School. Me realizing too in the scene, there are dancers in our scene that you can tell when they have many disciplines. When they've been to a dance school, I know it. I've seen it from the LaGuardias, from the PPAs. I mean, different art schools and performance schools that are dedicated also to dancing, and you being trained in many different styles. It really comes across that in your performance in salsa or in the dance world in general. I noticed it over the years. And for me, that really brings me to seeing as you started to grow. And then, like you said, you worked with your sister at one point and you were doing the work with collabs with different artists. Then seeing you transition to being a solo artist was really great to see, because now it's you in your total transparency. It's really the honest stage of you, because usually if you have someone next to you, there's always people who are watching both, but now it's solely on you. My question is, what was that feeling like for you now, that moment of you deciding like, hey, I'm going to now do me. I'm going to now perform solos. And what was that experience like for you?
It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing because it was terrifying. And I think that now when I feel a little bit scared by something, I'm like, I have to do this because this has to happen. I have to transition in that way. And that's what transitioning to dancing solo was for me. It was obviously nerve-wracking at first, but with the certainty that in my vision, in my soul, I could feel that I wanted to share what it was that I was ready to say at that specific moment to that specific song.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to create an entire image, you know what I mean? Like a story almost, and even like the costume in a certain way, just bringing to light the entire image of what I could see and really merge, like I mentioned before, that different experience that I would have in
Mhm.
the more technical, aspect of performing. So the lights, the curtains,
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into that, the costume and how it reflects, what colors to use. So I wanted to really incorporate that into our scene. And I think
Mhm.
that even something that was done by those before us, and then somewhere along the ways it kind of got lost, I think, in my opinion.
Yes.
So it's nice to see that coming back, and having people really think about the performance in that way, because I think it is a story. And if you're making art, usually it's because you have something to say. So thinking about every aspect of how you're going to say that, so that the message gets to the
Mhm.
right person,
Yeah.
even if it's just one person in that audience, that connected with you, and they were able to feel what I felt when I saw
Mhm.
others perform, then that for me was more than worth it. And even for myself, just the how happy I would feel during, after, if
Mhm.
I just put that nervousness to the side.
Yeah.
I knew it was right. I was like, I have to do this.
Oh yeah. I mean, for
Mm,
me, I think, in my honest opinion, what happened in our scene, me really going to congresses year after year, socials, especially throughout New York, was there came a point when I think certain companies, I wouldn't even say schools, certain companies saw what was working on stages. They saw what got the applause. They saw what got the standing ovations, and they wanted to copy it.
mm,
Wasn't really paying, and this is my honest opinion. I saw it year after year because the promoters would tell me this when I'm asking them, "What are you looking for?" And the main problem was, I don't want an artist to look like another artist. I don't want to see the same thing. And I think also that is what means so much to me in our community, is individuality, creativity, because we have so many teams, we have so many companies, we have so many socials and events, and realizing sometimes at congresses, those 30, 40, 50, 60 shows at a time can all look the same, but having artists like you, that when you come on, boom, immediately it's like, all right, it's high energy, but it's also telling a story at the same time, because I understand what it means of you're really running a production. It's not just a nice song. I thought of some choreography. You really put time and effort into your work, and I think that's really also what's had been lost, because people saw what was working and went with it. And there's only so much until you just look like everyone else. Um, and for me, that's what I say. You are really a special artist, because a unique artist, because over the years, it's easy to do the same formula, but when you're really reinventing yourself, I think that's what really matters. So, my question now is, as you said, you had your training with PPA, and then also with throughout Alvin Ailey getting your scholarship. What was that moment like for you? Or how did that moment feel when you were, I'm assuming, asked to be a teacher for Alvin Ailey? What was that initial experience like for you?
surreal. It was, yeah, it was surreal. And to become the first Latina to bring New York style mambo
Yeah.
to Alvin Ailey was something that was amazing, and definitely a dream come true. I believe in vision boards, and I make them all the time, and that was definitely something that was up there. So I believe in affirmations and speaking things into existence, and I think that was meant to be, and it was so amazing. And I've been with the institution as an instructor
Mhm.
now for about 4 years. So
Okay.
just to keep that legacy and merge those two worlds, to me it made sense, growing up there. And for anyone who doesn't know, the message behind Alvin Ailey is that the dance is for everyone, and it should always be given back to the people, because that's where it comes from.
Mhm.
It was the first African American company of African American dancers to perform internationally and to not just do ballet, to do different styles. And that somehow related itself to Mambo and the Palladium, and how, it was a place where there wasn't segregation and people could just come in and have a good time. And it was really for the people. So I felt like those two things made sense together. And to be the person that could connect that, it's really, really cool.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it made me so proud, especially when you say that, because I remember when that was announced and realizing when I saw that, and me being a fan of Alvin Ailey, but being a fan of dance, the education, the education portion of it, the actual performance aspect of it, even the production that goes into it. I really felt when I saw that announcement of you being the first, Latina, and like you said, with New York style mambo, at that moment, I really felt like we made it. I mean, because and I'm not gonna lie, I really felt that for still, because we've seen our dance art form expand even mainstream. So you think you can dance, from even movies doing little extra scenes, even movies dedicated solely to salsa, even when Santarico had the HBO special and etc. with other companies. But for an institution like Alvin Ailey that is so synonymous with all of its history, so many dancers that have come out of there, and having a person that has been recognized from our community as well, and having us, like you said, merging those styles. I mean, for me, that was legendary, because in that form, now people were really going to see what we loved doing for so many years, not just seen at a hotel for 3 days and a few hundred people know about it. Now it's going to be seen by the real, or the quote unquote, when they say real dancers, the ones that, I've heard that line so much. And, for me, I was so proud, and I still am, because I know what it means for you. I know that feeling, in a sense of, that's a once in a lifetime thing. And also you're breaking boundaries and breaking barriers for more people, because now other artists will say to themselves, if she can do it, I'm going to do it. Because, and I think that's really special for me. I've always felt that way, because, there's very few artists that are able to really reinvent themselves over the years. Some people just stay content of where they are. But now you being from that young girl learning at Yamule, and over the years being able to be taught by legendary people, from Osmal, from Eddie Torres, but also then your teachers over the years, you can just tell you've been taught so well, not just as a dancer, not just with technique, but just that maturity factor. You just come across, and like you say, your stuff, you know what you're doing, and it shows. I mean, from your classes, even from your regular promo demo work I've seen, it's beautiful. I mean, everything hits, from the videography aspect. But me, I love is the facial expressions. For me, it kills it, because that's what I thrive on. Because it's easy to just do a routine, but when you can give your all and give those facial expressions, like I'm owning the stage, I mean, that definitely separates you from many.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I appreciate that. It means a lot to hear your feedback, and even just, people in general, my students and everyone around me, just to hear that love. It means a lot to open yourself up in that way, and express what it is that you feel, and to have others relate to that in their own way.
Yeah.
And I think that is what we're all looking for, especially in a time like this, when we are, as we know, in a pandemic, and we have a little over a year now that we've all been separated more than we normally would, especially for us, that we're used to going to socials and being around each other. And so this is a different time. And I think it makes us appreciate those connections even more.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it seems here it says KJ says, piggybacking off that, as a former partner and proud sister, I think that she was always and was meant to be on stage and spreading her gift. And I'm gonna say this. She also puts here, when we get back into Alias, things open up. You have to go to a class and truly experience. And I will tell you this: I accept that challenge. Absolutely,
Yay.
absolutely. I promise you
Yes.
that. And also, too. Now, my question is, with you, of course, being a dancer, and many people know, what was a hobby of yours that many people would just not know you do? Because most people just see you perform, but what is something that Catherine loves to do outside of dance?
So I am a super physical person. So
Hmm,
I love, yeah, I used to run track for a couple years.
okay.
Yeah, won a couple medals, you know.
All right. All right.
But yeah, I used to run track. I come from, like I mentioned, parents and a family that's very active.
Yes.
So I'm a great swimmer. I love to swim. I play a little basketball. My sister, yes, she was on a team that was the only. She can correct me if I'm wrong, but the only female football league in New York, or even I think the United States. And so she was playing tackle football. So I don't play tackle, but I have, played with them a couple times, some flag football. I
Okay.
just love to be outside. I love nature. It really helps feed my soul.
I like that. I like that because it's like so much we just see you on stage. We see you at the shows, we see you teaching. But for me, it's like I know what every artist I speak to, there's so much more because, having an awesome family like you have, having the type of life you've had thus far, um, is beautiful and it's amazing because, again, it's so easy for you at one point to just say, you know what, I'm done and I want to just do something else. But like you said, dance has always been a passion throughout your life. Your family has been involved, but it's done so much for you throughout your years. It's maybe taught you so many lessons about maybe even yourself, about the limits you can push. And for me, I'm thankful that our community has a person like you because you realize, again, like we've talked as well, that, especially during this pandemic, I think I really realized how a lot of us in our community are very vulnerable, and realizing that so many of us we're so used to going to events all the time, so used to performing. And when the pandemic hit, I realized a lot of the artists that I loved and talked to and spoke to weren't able or fell out of love with dance. Many of them stopped and moved on to different careers because at that moment there was no money and they needed to find something else. But also realizing um, that dance never left. You may have grown other passions, but seeing the work you continue to put out, um, I love it because, again, it's motivating. It's realizing that we still have you here because I believe that your presence is so valuable to our community because it just shows the progression and realizing if you push yourself, you can really become a work of art on stage because there's very few artists, again, like I say, that really have that it factor, that lasting it factor. And I'm thankful again that our community has you. And for me, a question now that I have is, when the pandemic hit, and of course as we're still going through it, but the initial times, what was that like for you? Kind of at one point you're going to classes, teaching, and then everything kind of just stopping at one point.
Right. I remember the day that I
Yeah.
received the message. I actually had a class at Ailey that day, and we were still in that moment where we weren't sure what was going to happen.
Mhm.
And people messaged me, "Are we having class?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on my way to the city." And we received that email that everything was closing down, and I was like, "Actually, we're not. We're gonna stay." So first thing was just, that instant reaction to just want to be safe, want to be home, make sure that all of our ducks are in a row, as they
Yeah.
say, and that everything was okay here. As the weeks progressed, I have my students that have been with me for about 4 years now.
Mhm.
And we just started, having our classes on Zoom. And I was just offering it for them. I wanted to make sure that we kept that routine going that we had been doing for them and for me. I know it was just as important. So same thing. I feel like if I can use it and it can benefit me, then I'm sure someone else can benefit as well. So we started off in that way. But instantly thinking the way that I am, like, how can I make this better? How can I, really change this up? So my dad, he's like my manager. So I started, just like shooting ideas, and we started brainstorming. So, together we were able to create this platform that I have now. And it's called kjon2.com.
Yes.
So anyone can log in there. And obviously it's taken some time, and it's just the beginning, but it was something that I had been working on.
Mhm.
And this was, I think, that push that maybe I needed to put all those ideas that I was like, yeah, one day I'll get to it, when I have a little more time, or but the moment was now. And we were able to make it happen. So almost a year now, I've had that platform where people can just log in,
Mhm.
they purchase a class, and you can see my classes streaming there. Another thing is that most people don't know that I teach at a performing arts middle school. So I teach dance as the dance teacher for the performing arts school. So that was something that was heavier than I think I could have anticipated.
Mhm.
So I've been with them for about 2 years now. And having that happen, I just didn't know what to expect. And you almost feel like a mom for all these students. And so to have that happen and have these people kind of like, what's going on? Do you know? And you don't know what to say. That was a whole other avenue that I had to explore. And it was all through dance, which has been beautiful, but it was a place for growth for sure.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think too, what this pandemic has shown also is how, when kind of not really the roles are reversed, but when you're not in control of doing the things you've done before, when now you have to learn to adapt to a different situation, realizing too the um accessibility that you're giving your consumer, because now I've seen, especially with many artists now leaning towards a online role, not just as of course in person, but having that online feature, allowing your students to, like you say, purchase a class online and take it when they're able to, because their jobs and etc. You giving your students different avenues, I think that's great. And now my last question before we get into the segment that I have at the end called the randoms is, now, from seeing where this pandemic is, what is really do you feel honestly the outlook or the future really of our dance community?
Do you want to limit it or just
I
in
would say, and just for you, however you want to go
go
around.
about
Go
it?
ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I honestly, I don't think dance is going anywhere.
Mhm.
I think that it is alive and kicking, and I honestly believe that it's just going to get better
Yes.
because of people like you, people like me, people that are out there doing so many wonderful projects, and owning who they are as well. And I think I'm excited personally. I'm excited to see what's gonna come
Mhm.
in the next couple of years, because I do think that this was a time of growth, and it
Yeah,
still is. And once you've tapped into that, I don't think you can run away from it. You always, what it felt like, you've tasted it. So now you have to keep pushing those boundaries, and that makes me excited to see what's going to happen next, or what's going to come out of it.
absolutely. I mean, for me, just like your journey, my journey of being a child dancer, teenage dancer, now a young, at one point a young man, and now at 30 years old, realizing that I've been dancing for over 25 years. And for me, dance is really all I've known. I've been involved in this community from being a performer, from being a videographer, now being putting myself in a public space of having a platform that for me, I want to give back to the very artists like yourselves because as I've told you, for me, my biggest issue is I felt a lot of us as artists were only really understood as just what we did in the public eye. But not many people even care to understand who we were as people at times. I'm not saying everyone, but from my experiences, realizing a lot of the same people that loved me on stage and told me that never would even ask how I'm doing as a person. So now having that platform and saying, as the artist to artist that has lived that type of life, that understands, that comes from that point of view, that understands of going to a show 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, just waiting to perform, and you're performing just for 2, 3 minutes, but those 2, 3 minutes mean everything. Everything has to count. Everything means the world at that point. Nothing else matters. And getting off that stage and just having one person, like you said, understand and appreciate what you're doing means the world. And, for me, having this platform, having artists like you is what's needed because I'm able to have the artists like you tell your story, not have someone else tell it for you. And that's for me what's important because like as I speak to you as we talk about this, it's really more of a glimpse into your life because there's so many different layers. And that's why I always love having my guests in the beginning and bringing them back on. And now we can go even deeper and talk about what it's like at Congress life, what it's like as a teacher directly at Alvin Ailey, what that experience really is like, and helping people understand. Because I think also, lastly, is that our conversation allows people who support us, especially you, to now have a better connection and understanding of you. So now, when we come back into some type of normalcy, these same people that have seen you on stages years ago now will see you and say, I know a little bit more about Catherine than I did before. And just building those relationships.
Absolutely. And I commend you because I think that is something that is lost many times. And I remember seeing even like Dancing with the Stars,
Yes.
and even seeing that transition on there. So I think this is amazing. This is an amazing project. And I look forward to where you're going to go with this and to watch you grow also as you experiment.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I tell you this, and I've told many people, my focus really is then taking this platform, of course, keeping it here, but when we come back to a normalcy at these congresses, at these festivals, even socials, being that face of talking to the artists backstage directly, live videos of what it's like backstage, getting the glimpse of understanding what the artist is thinking right before they get on, even talking to them after. Having that real impact of, what, when you talk about you want to know your artist more, I'm giving you that opportunity because also I want these very artists to know that what they do is appreciated, and of course now more than ever because we've seen in our profession, even when the hardest of times, the dance, the word dance or the job of dance is overlooked in the arts form and realizing more now more than ever, for me having this, I want to be able to have you tell your story in full transparency, so people could again understand you again, not just as the dancer or the teacher, but the human being. So I think now is a perfect time to transition into the segment that I have called the randoms, which is about 10 random questions
Okay.
of myself and the audience to get to know you a little bit better. So all I need to know, Catherine, is when you are ready.
Yes, let's go. Let's do it.
All right, let's go. First question is, what is your favorite food?
My favorite food.
Hmm.
So, I'm gonna be honest. Favorite food: arroz con fideo y
Mm,
salami.
wow. Okay.
Yes, I also love olives. Just
Oh,
throwing that in there. Yes.
all right. I like that. I like that. All right. Next question is, if you were at a social right now, what social would that be?
Oof. If I was I would be at Jimmy Anton's
Hmm.
social, the man himself. We would be there.
Big ups to Jimmy Anton. That
Right.
honestly one of the longest, I think the longest social
Yeah.
at that time. And I definitely can't wait till things get better and we can have Jimmy Anton socials again. All right, next question is, what is Catherine's dream vacation destination?
Oof. I have to say the motherland. Yeah, the Dominican Republic.
Okay,
That
okay.
is where my family's from. We have to go to the motherland and be in the beach, enjoy the sun.
All right. I love it. I love it. All right. So next question is, and I call this a spicy question because it has to do in our dance world. What is a really big turnoff for Catherine when she is dancing with a lead?
That's a good question. I think the worst thing for me is when someone is not trying to connect with you
Mm,
and they're just kind of, I don't know where, but somewhere else. I think that dance is supposed to be a conversation, especially mambo. Like we said, it goes back to the times of the Palladium and
mm,
having that interaction with people. And it's supposed to be about that, right? There's supposed
yeah.
to be the sort of push and pull that it's a conversation on the dance floor. So just not being present, I would say.
Okay. All right. Next question is, when you think about one performance, like what is one of the most memorable performances you've had? Maybe a certain story, something happened, or just for you, like when you think of one show, what is that one show that comes to your mind?
So there were two that came to mind. There's obviously more, but two that came
Yeah.
to mind instantly. The first is, I think it was an all-time favorite, which is called Hey Joe. My
Mhm.
sister and I did. A lot of people did it. It was like, the Michael Jackson
Yes,
vibe.
yes.
Hey Joe, and then she would throw the hat. Hey girl. Hey girl. So that was iconic. I think people love that. And everywhere we would go, they would request it.
Um,
Um, but top number one, I think, would be we did a choreography where we performed with Eddie,
yeah.
and he would always joke around, as though we were kind of bickering, Crystal and I, and we were kind of dancing in that way, like all up in each other's face. And he came in, he's like, I'm the grandpa, making sure that you guys are not gonna fight anymore. And he like, okay, you go. So just being able to share that experience. Obviously, we got so many other opportunities to perform and do things like that, but that was definitely, I think, top at the list.
Oh man, I definitely remember those performances. I remember that routine you did with Eddie, and I loved it. I mean, everything was awesome, and just the energy and the presence you guys had on stage was great. So now my next question is for you: is what would be your superpower?
What would be my superpower? To fly.
Mm.
To fly, yes.
You just want to get everywhere you got to get to. You got to get everywhere you want to go quickly.
Yes, I mean, just to feel, like I said, I love to be outside. So to just have that freedom of like, I'm gonna fly now, this is my moment to just enjoy myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my next question would be, if you could be at any Congress right now, what would it be?
Um, Again, first one that came to mind, may he rest in peace, Albert Torres.
Hmm.
But I think that was one of the congresses where I created so many wonderful memories.
Yeah.
And it was, if for those that of you that didn't experience it, it was this like little city that he would build in LA. And I remember you would walk in and there were stores and it was literally
Oh, you're
a
talking about the tent.
mambo city.
Yes. I know. Oh, man.
And you would walk in there. So I would love to relive that and have maybe, something like that now where I'm sure it'll be crazy. We all haven't had that opportunity to just be around each other.
Mhm.
So that would be dope.
All right. Next question is right now, what is a really big hobby that Catherine likes to do besides dance? I know you kind of answered that earlier, but like, what's actually one thing that many people wouldn't know you like doing besides, of course, what you said earlier?
Yeah. I think that one is hard for me
Mhm.
because I do spend a lot of my time doing my practice, but I guess meditation
Mm,
is something that maybe a lot of people don't know that I practice, and especially throughout this year, I
yeah.
would say even more than before. And it's definitely something that I really enjoy.
Okay. All right. My second to last question would be, can you name me three artists that have been most influential to you?
Okay, let me see if I can think. So, top of the list, Michael Jackson for
Mm,
sure. Debbie Allen
yes.
is
Thank
another one, and third one. Obviously, there's so many, but I'm trying to have my top three.
you.
Three is
Mhm.
my favorite number, by the way. Um, but yes, I think third I would have to say Eddie Torres.
Mm,
Eddie Torres for sure. Yeah.
okay. All right. I like that. I like that. And my last question, I love and asking this question because the answers are sometimes crazy and unbelievable. But it goes like this: if you're on an island, I'll give it to you. You're in Dominican Republic at your favorite La Playa, your favorite playa right now, and you can only have three things with you. What would it be? But also disclaimer: there is no Wi-Fi.
There's no Wi-Fi. That's fine. I'm in the Dominican Republic on a
Yes.
beach. I don't need Wi-Fi. Some sunscreen,
Okay.
because even though I have my melanin, we've been locked up for
Yeah.
a year, so and you need to protect your skin. So some sunscreen, some, a glass of something refreshing could be, maybe like a little champagne, a little wine.
Mm,
Um, and third, music.
mm,
Music.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's very simple. I love it. And Catherine, I want to thank you so much for doing this segment. I always usually do it at the end, so people can understand a little bit more about you right before we go. But honestly, Catherine, from start to finish, I've enjoyed every minute of our conversation because again, it's once again us connecting in a different format, even though it's virtual, but also realizing that throughout your years, a person like myself who's been dancing in New York for many years, and whether I've been in different teams, performing different socials, seeing artists like yourself that I feel like I've grown up with, and seeing where you are now, seeing where you're headed. I mean, I would even say the sky's the limit. I mean, for me, it's just I think you have limitless talent. For me, also the responsibility that you have, like you said, as a teacher means so much as well because you're giving your passion or you're sharing your passion with other people. And I think it's special, whether it's in person or virtual, seeing that how passionate you are about dance and how dance is given so much to you. But I want to really give a big shout out to your dad because I remember that guy still to this day when I would go to CT Salsa Fest back in the days, and he was there watching you guys in tech. And for me, it was awesome to see a dad in that role because honestly, in our dance scene, you see just mainly moms. It's mainly moms that come and help out with performances and such. And it's sometimes rare to have the mom and the dad there. And realizing it was really special. So definitely big up to your dad, Felix. I love that guy, honestly. I mean,
Yes, and shout out to both of my
yes,
parents,
both
Magnolia
of them.
and Felix.
Thank you, thank you. Because
You
again, it's
see, they're not too far.
no, absolutely. Because honestly, again, I really held that true, and it was really amazing to see a family loving what their children are doing, but now also realizing how involved your parents are with dance. So everything really just makes sense. And honestly, I think tonight was really special. I feel like this conversation is just a part one to hopefully many more conversations because I feel you can't really take a person's story in just one scoop. I mean, for me, I feel like there's so many layers, especially to you, to your story. I mean, even from when you were young, even in your high school days, even now as a teacher for Alvin Ailey, but also to your solo work, seeing the new ideas you have. And I definitely hope that we can have you on for the future. But before we go, I would love to know if you had any last few words for myself in the audience, but also contact info on where people can reach you about upcoming classes and projects you have.
Absolutely. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much if you are here and you're watching this interview. And thank you so much to Diamond for having me. I am so excited that we were able to have this
Mm.
conversation. And the feeling is very mutual. It has been an absolute pleasure to have this opportunity, and I look forward to continuing this. And like you said, hopefully in person. Hopefully the next
Yeah.
time we'll be out in a congress or a social somewhere, and we can get a dance in.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
But
absolutely.
this has been amazing. So thank you. And contact information. So I mentioned before
Mhm.
that my website is kjon2.com. So simple, just kjon2.com. And on there, you can see all of my classes. My information is there as well. Instagram, you can just Instagram and Facebook. You
Yeah.
can find me as Katherine Jimenez Official.
Mhm.
And what else? If you use a hashtag, I have a hashtag.
Okay.
It's making mambo moves. So if you hashtag that, you'll be able to see some of the work that I've done with my students. I always encourage them to use that hashtag, so you'll be able to see some of the performance side of my work.
Okay. I'll tell you this, Catherine, honestly, also myself as a videographer, when I really get back into filming, I would definitely love to do some work with you and, make some mambo moves. We can definitely keep that tag up. But,
Let's do it.
Catherine,
Let's do it.
absolutely. And, for me, this was really memorable because, again, this type of story, long after we're no longer dancing, quote unquote, um, moments like this will be around for people to understand that in our dance community, we matter. Our stories matter. Our experiences matter. Our journey matters. And it matters to me, especially because this dance scene has given me so many memories, um, from not just being a performer, but being a spectator and seeing artists like yourself grow over the years. And again, I'm thankful that our community has an artist like yourself, a person, not just the artist. And I'm glad that at least tonight we can have this conversation, have people like your sister on, and understand how important, again, family is. And again, I really do hope that when we do come back to some normalcy and come back to our socials, I'll definitely be there. And now we have really a better connection with one another, but also now the people who are watching have a better connection with us. So, Catherine, I thank you so much tonight. I definitely can't wait to have you on again, as well, but also maybe also in the future do a panel with a few other New York artists, and we really, just share experiences, share stories, because I think too our stories again really matter, and we'd be surprised how similar we are to one another. So I thank you again. I thank everyone that has tuned in tonight, that is watching, that will watch. You've tuned into another episode of the Live Discussions with Diamond podcast. And tonight, again, you can see and hear this interview Facebook, YouTube, through as well as Google, Apple, and I believe I did say Spotify. But yeah, we're on many streaming platforms. So, Catherine, I thank you so much tonight. And I thank everyone for tuning in. And again, everyone, have a safe night. Be safe. Bye.